Hi there, episode 5. And they said it wouldn't last. Welcome back. I'm glad you could join us. Thanks you. Thanks again for your support and your continued interest as we grow. So, the Red Sox are done for another season, but that probably means nothing to whoever's watching this, as it's a sports ball type of thing. This week, we're going to feature 2 new theater reviews and shows happening in the state of Massachusetts, and then we'll take a look at some of the shows coming up during October. The shows we're going to review this week are The Counter, taking place at the Umbrella Arts Center in Concord, and then we're going to look at The House on Haunted Hill. That's taking place from the Quantum Poet Players in Reading. Tonight, I made a promise to Roger Earl of Foghat. You may remember from the last episode. So tonight, I'll be over at the Hanover Theater in Worcester while enjoying a rock and roll double bill with Foghat and legendary 80s band Starship. Meanwhile, my other reviewer, Amanda, will be catching the Dungeons and Dragons inspired 20-sided tavern over in Boston. Over the weekend, I'll also be reviewing Can Can by Sullivan Rep in Dedham and Murder on the Orient Express, which will be happening down at the Bradley Playhouse in Putnam, Connecticut. So it's a packed weekend. So tune in next week for a jam-packed episode. And now, on to the show. Enjoy. Thanks. 2 characters who feel they have begun to know one another beyond their established waitress-customer relationship reveal suppressed secrets in The Counter, a new play by Megan Kennedy, now playing at Umbrella Arts Center in Concord. The short play by Kennedy is aptly titled as The Counter, immediately evokes ideas and perceptions of things upon which one can count, such as counting the number of people that appear within the play. 3, by the way. Or maybe counting the number of minutes the play runs. 75, by the way. Or perhaps certain plot elements within the play just might run counter to how you expect the story to unfold, which it does to some extent. And yet, it also can evoke ideas and perceptions about things that can be counted upon, like friends. People you feel you can trust. Even though you may have only known them a short time, you feel you can confide in them and count on them, and especially in a time of need. And all of this takes place in the most normal of places, at the counter of a local diner. The Umbrella Arts Center's single set design of a diner for the show is stunningly detailed, providing director Alex Lanati with the perfect landscape for painting this tale that may seem familiar and a bit unsurprising, but still captures and, more importantly, maintains our interest thanks to the seemingly sincere chemistry between its 2 stars. Now, technically not a two-hander show, Counter actually has 3 performers, but almost all of the play centers on the multiple exchanges over the course of a few days that take place between only 2 of the characters. Katie, played by Margaret Clark, is a waitress at the diner who moved to town 2 years ago. Ranny plays longtime resident Paul, who comes into the diner every day and chats with Katie. What begins as everyday light banter soon becomes or evolves into Paul suggesting they have a connection and would like them to become more acquainted with each other, not romantically, just socially. Katie, reluctant at first, realizes she has no other friends in town, close or otherwise, so she agrees. Their interaction is limited to these breakfasts at the diner as Paul helps Katie remove some old and non-listened to voicemail messages. However, as more and more of these 2 characters and their respective stories are revealed, Paul makes an odd request of Katie. We soon learn of Paul's family and, in a stirring performance by Ranny, discover Paul has been dealt a fatal familial blow that no family member should suffer through, let alone being the one left behind, fearing they may meet a similar tragic fate. So he makes this request of Katie to help him not meet a similar tragedy, which, to Paul, is inevitable. Katie is resistant to reveal her past to Paul as to her life before moving to town. Yet she soon lets him know her own levels of desperation and despair, and her coming to town was not for new opportunities, but rather escape. While Maureen Keeler as Peg is quite impressive in her only scene in the play, unfortunately there's just not enough character development there to speak of, or with which the actor can work to make it more interesting. However, it is a significant plot point for the backstory of Paul. There are certainly unanswered questions left for us to ponder by the end of the play, but that is a strength, not a weakness, as it will keep folks continuously engaged, guessing as to certain meanings behind its conclusion, long after they exit the theater. That said, again, there's still virtually no surprises to speak of here, at least none that are worth counting. But the one thing you can count on is enjoying the rapport and relationship between Paul and Katie, thanks to the tremendous chemistry between actors Rani and Clark. At approximately 75 minutes with no intermission, The Counter by Megan Kennedy continues at Umbrella Arts Center in Concord through November 9th, 2025. For tickets and more information, contact Umbrella Arts Center at 978-371-0820 or visit theumbrellarts.org. Quantipoet Players chimes in spooky season with The House on Haunted Hill, which keeps tongue planted firmly in cheek as it unleashes a twisted tale of murder, malevolence, mayhem, the macabre, and of course, marriage. If you grew up in Massachusetts in the 70s or 80s, the Vincent Price 1959 movie version of The House on Haunted Hill, written by Rob White, was shown relentlessly on Creature Double Feature or other late-night or weekend afternoon movie shows. The House on Haunted Hill was shown so often locally that it became almost required viewing if you were into creepy, over-the-top B-horror movie flicks, and White's screenplay certainly was over-the-top as it gets. By the way, most folks instantly recall Vincent Price from the film, but seem to forget other notable actors such as the handsome leading man Richard Long of Nanny and the Professor and The Big Valley, and certainly gone from this world too soon, and legendary character actor Alicia Cook. The film's plot was more whimsical and chilling, but did a great job at holding the viewer's interest as the ludicrous plot unfolded. In the play adaptation by Tommy Jameson, that spirit of camp seems more leaned into than the ghoulish nature of the story, although the folks at Quantipoet Players have added many, many ominous and spooky special lighting and sound effects to help add to the fun. In the QP production of The House on Haunted Hill, we meet millionaire Frederick Lauren, played by Adam Haru, who becomes our guide through the tale of terror and titters. Haru is thoroughly entertaining as Lauren and keeps our attention focused on much of the twists and turns we are about to witness. Frederick's wife, fourth wife, Annabelle, played by Chris Reynolds, instantly makes one wonder what these two ever saw in one another as the Barbs fly fiercely every time the couple are on stage together. Reynolds is quite good as the deceitful Annabelle, who loathes her husband, and even though she suspects and fears foul play recalling the suspicious deaths of her predecessors, does everything in her power to remind Frederick of just how much she loathes him. For unknown or rather unclear reasons, which don't get much clearer as the tale progresses, but that was the same issue with the movie. The couple decide to have a party, a truly ghoulish, ghastly party at The House on Haunted Hill, and we're all invited to go along to witness the spectral misadventures about to befall. Aiding Frederick at the house is his faithful personal assistant, Cassidy Bowman, played by Michaela Zullo, and the Slides, Barbara Bourgeois and Ken Tucci, a ghastly elder couple that also provide most of the laughs throughout the story. Arriving at The House on Haunted Hill, in a torrential rainstorm, are 5 seemingly random selected invited guests. These guests and we shall soon discover that they have more in common than they first admit. The last thing they wanted was to be invited to spend the night at this decrepit estate on one of the worst rainstorms of the year. However, the only reason that each has agreed to this is for, of course, a purely selfish financial motivation, i.e. greed. Each person that stays alive overnight in this reportedly haunted house will receive $50,000. Just as I found watching the original movie, there are so many absurd plot twists and turns, double crosses and triple crosses, that The House on Haunted Hill ultimately proves to be a night filled less with fear and more with fun. While the above seems to be intentional, it is counterbalanced with the use of ominous or even otherworldly special effects that are all well executed. Okay, perhaps that's a poor choice of wording, but you get the idea. While founded in the horror genre, thanks to the more sardonic approach taken by Jameson in his script, this fine QP cast under the direction of Mark Rowley does so well with the material that they just might have you smiling more times than screaming. If so, well, that's probably okay too. At approximately 2 hours with one intermission, The House on Haunted Hill continues from Quantipoet Players in Reading, Mass. Through October 11th, 2025, and will either send shivers or giggles along one spine. For tickets and more information, contact Quantipoet Players at 781-942-2212 or email boxoffice@qptheater.com. Coming up in October, Sardines, a comedy about death, written and performed by Chris Grace, will be at the very busy Huntington Theater Company in Boston from September 30th through November 16th. 300 paintings by Sam Kisajukian at the American Repertory Theater will take place in Cambridge, running from October 1st through October 19th. William Shakespeare's Macbeth will be at the Actors Shakespeare Project taking place in Watertown from October 2nd to October 26th. Dungeons & Dragons, the 20-Sided Tavern, will be at the Bach Center Schubert Theater in Boston for a limited engagement running from October 3rd through October 5th. Cole Porter's Anything Goes opens tonight at Theater at the Mountain Gardner from October 3rd through October 12th. Ken Ludwig's adaptation of Agatha Christie's Murder on the Orient Express also rolls into the theater at Northeastern Connecticut at the Bradley Playhouse in Putnam, Connecticut, starting tonight, October 3rd, running through October 19th. The Clumsy Custard Horror Show by William Gleason takes place at the Gateway Players in Southbridge, Mass. from October 4th to October 12th. Misery by William Goldman, based on the novel by Stephen King, is at the Stadium Theater down in Woonsocket, Rhode Island, from October 6th to October 9th. Churchill, written by and starring David Payne, will be at the BCA Calderwood in Boston for a limited engagement, starting October 7th, running only until October 12th. The musical Tick, Tick, Boom by Jonathan Larson of Rent fame plays at the Umbrella Art Center in Concord from October 10th to November 23rd, while Six, the fabulous musical by Toby Marlowe and Lucy Moss, hits the stage at the Hanover Theater for the Performing Arts in Worcester from October 14th to October 19th. Finally, at least for this week, Noel Coward's Blithe Spirit will float into the New Players Theater Guild stage in Fitchburg from October 10th to October 19th. So that's it for this week. That's all for the episode. Come back next week, and we'll take a look at more shows that are taking place during the month of October, and we'll continue to look at everything that is happening in Massachusetts theater. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.